So we're going to talk about menstrual cycles and how women and specifically girls today are really having to understand what their bodies do. And this is something that wasn't really taught to me when I was growing up. When, when I started my cycle, my older sister, who was 15 months older than me, hadn't started her cycle yet. But my mom would always talk to her about her cycle, and then I'd walk in the room and they'd stop talking. So here I was, like, completely uneducated. I'm 12 years old. I'm just about to enter 6th grade, and my period starts, right? This is how a lot of women have grown up. And unfortunately, they just we don't know what we don't know, right? And there's got to be a lot more education around how our cycles are created, why they're created, why we're able to cycle, and understand our bodies. I mean, there's girls out there, women even, that they didn't even know they had 3 holes. Okay, it's a simple, basic thing that they don't even realize. And, so I teach this girls workshop called Maidens by His Design. And one of the first things that I do in the very first day of the workshop is I'll hand them out 3x5 cards, and I'll say, okay, girls, I want you to write on there something you want to learn about in this workshop. So they know a little bit about what they might learn, but they don't really know anything about, exactly what we're going to learn. And I've had girls say all kinds of things on that 3x5 card because nobody else is going to see it except I'm going to read it out loud without any name. Right? I possibly could read out loud, but their embarrassment goes away because they know their name's not attached to it, right? So they feel so much more comfortable just allowing themselves to write that down because they want to know the answers, right? And if we're not teaching our girls how our bodies are made and why they're made, then they're missing it, right? They're missing the mark. And then when they get older and they become pregnant, they wonder, well, I don't understand the whole birth process, right? And they don't understand the birth process because they weren't taught about their cycles to begin with. So what do y'all think about that?
Well, I can agree. Just being a coach and someone who mentors a lot of young women, I've been asked those questions even before I was a mom. And sometimes it would just shock me because just growing up, I didn't have the experience you had, Naomi, because my mom worked in a teen pregnancy center. So she was kind of equipped with the tools to be able to teach me as a young girl, what was going to happen. So the day when it happened, I remember it vividly. I was in the restroom and I saw what was happening. I just went, tapped my mom on the shoulder. We was at Piccadilly's eating in Daytona. I know this and I tapped her on the shoulder and I told her, and we went and took care of it. But I had been since 9 years old told that this was going to happen. And thankfully, because my mom was working at a teenage pregnancy center, so she saw a lot of those girls come in with those questions. And as a coach, I just make sure I always had stuff available, if that happened, because we talk about it in society more as a stigma. It's something to be ashamed of, other than it's something that's naturally going to happen. And I think that's what, I try to do as a woman, is just encourage girls that it's natural. It's nothing wrong with you because your body, your hormones are changing. It's something you're going to go through, and, just take care of yourself and, have what you eat available, take care of your hygiene during that time. So that's my personal thought on it.
Good. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we also don't even understand all the products that are available to us when we have a cycle, right? And I think that's important as well to be talking about. It's not a taboo subject. It doesn't have to be a taboo subject, I should say, but it's been a taboo subject for a very long time. And, women need to feel comfortable talking to their daughters, their grandchildren about it, cousins, whatever, that come over to their house, because it affects all women. And it's their introduction to womanhood, really.
Yeah. Well, as the older one on the show, I was in a different era, and
Yeah.
we never had, we didn't have products, commercials about women's products. That still amazes me that we didn't have those on TV. But but it's because I grew up where that was something it was behind closed doors. You could talk about it. That was just between, if your mom felt comfortable, she talked about it. If not, you were on your own. And because back then it was taboo. And I think now at least we've gotten to the place to where we can talk about it. I think what you're saying, Naomi, is we've got to empower our girls. We've got to empower our moms. How do you talk about it? What do you do? And I know there's brochures and books and things now that you can use, but I think it's still one of those subjects where we don't really want to go there. It's personal.
Yeah.
And so what really is so personal about it that we feel like that we can't openly communicate about it? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I guess because I'm in the field and I talk about vaginas all day.
Right.
It's not a big deal to me. But, and also I have a son and I've been able to tell him about puberty, about how, his body is wonderfully made.
Right.
And of course I started with his own body, but then I also told him about, that sex was reserved for male and female marriage, a marriage. And so when I was able to do that, he understood. And then I was able to share about birth and how the baby comes out and all that stuff. And so now he completely understands what I do. And so when I'm talking about it, it's not like this, oh, I got to be careful what I say around my son because I don't want him to hear this because he might not understand. You know what I'm saying? So, when we have it out in the open, it's so much easier to talk about.
I think it's a cultural thing too. We're in the United States, but in other cultures,
Oh, yeah.
when a woman comes in her cycle, she's unclean. And you got to think about from years ago, since the beginning of time, when women became in her cycle, you got to think from century to century to century to century to century that it was like, oh, she's unclean, or some women had to go outside the village until they got done, or some women, some cultures very strict about that. It was like, she's unclean right now. And so it was over the centuries, it just wasn't talked about. It's just something that, we have to deal with. But I think now that we're in the 21st century, it's not only important to talk to our young girls, but our older women like my age, I'm going through different changes. And now I'm glad we're in an age where we have more alternative methods to dealing with your cycle. For example, when I was coming up as a little girl, when I got cramps, Mom said, take Motrin 800. So that was in my head for years. Motrin 800 is the cure for the cramps.
Yeah.
And now that I'm older, you can do things like drink tea or put a heating pad on, or I've even noticed different eating. Sometimes when I eat better, it helps with my cycles. So I think education across the board, from our young girls to our older, a lot of women have very harsh cycles. I'm one of them.
Would you know that 1 in 10 women have PCOS?
Yeah, but no, I didn't know
1
that.
in
And what is PCOS for our audience? For the layperson?
polycystic ovarian syndrome.
Okay, so
Yeah.
which is many cysts.
Yeah,
On your
cis,
L.
and of course, you typically have really tough cycles. Usually more possibly, and there's scar tissue there as well, and so it's a lot more painful when you have a cycle.
Right.
And when you're not having a cycle, why are you not having a cycle? Like women think, well, oh great, I don't have a cycle, but if there's not a cycle, then why are you not having a cycle?
Right.
Because we're made to cycle.
Mhm.
And there are certain things we can do in order to make sure that we have a cycle so that we are more healthy, because it's showing there's a deficit, right? There's a problem when you're not cycling.
Yeah. Well,
Up to a certain age.
yeah,
Well,
right,
of course.
right.
Yeah.
Which we'll talk about that in
Yes,
another
yes.
topic.
Yeah. I think too, Naomi, I think after this segment, people should be able to get in touch with you because you're very knowledgeable about this area. And even me, I met you a few years ago and you taught me a lot of things. And I've been in healthcare for over 25 years. And part of those years was in OBGYN. You come from more of a natural alternatives, more holistic, which I think a lot of women just don't have access to. I can speak from the healthcare aspect of being in healthcare. There's a certain standard of care, and the standard of care does not include holistic. It's more prescription,
Oh, yeah.
more
Take a
procedures.
Motrin.
Yeah, take a Motrin or get a hysterectomy.
Yeah.
You know, or get an epidural. So, Naomi, I think these type of conversations, with experts like yourself and others need to be had, because a lot of young girls and ladies in general, they just don't have the knowledge of. And again, I think we as a whole, we need to talk about these, to have these type of
Yeah.
discussions,
Sure.
you know.
Yeah.
To answer your question, I think a lot of reason why they don't talk about it is because, like they were saying, it's been the custom.
Mhm.
So like if your mom didn't talk to you about it and you don't know how to talk to your child about it, you'd rather not.
Mhm.
And it's just like you said, back then they didn't talk about a lot of stuff openly.
Yeah.
It was like keep stuff in the house, we just don't have these conversations. And as we continue to grow, as women, we have to start having those conversations,
Absolutely.
younger people talking to older people
Mhm.
talking to younger people. So we can spread that wisdom so we can continue to move forward. And then we can learn from each other's experience. It's just not, you showing up to school one day and this is happening. And now you got to go to your teachers. Cause I've even heard young girls, they think that they're about to die because they've never been told this. Like they go in the back, they're like, oh my God, have so much anxiety when it happens because they haven't been prepared that it's going to happen.
Let me tell you, I must have been like 13 years old and my period started when I was in school one time and I didn't have anything. I hadn't carried anything to school that day. So I went to the vending machine. I got a tampon because there was no other thing there but a tampon. Never used a tampon in my life before that. I stuck that tampon in with the whole cardboard and everything and did not understand that cardboard needed to come out.
Wow.
And then I went and sat down in school for the rest of the day. And so I was like, oh my God, I'm never using a tampon in my life again.
That's pretty
This
traumatic.
is the worst.
Yeah.
And needless to say, if I ever used a tampon after that, it was the OB tampon without an applicator. But these are things that, like, if my mom had taught me better, but she didn't have a tampon.
Right.
There was no tampons at all.
Well, at least you got that. My experience, my mom gave me her pain. Sixth grade. So I was running. It was like started up here. Being a sixth grader, that was the most embarrassing thing.
Because that people are
I know. I'm like, oh my gosh, they could see my diaper on.
Yeah.
So those kind of things, but again, we just need to, my mom did the best she could. I'm glad she did, but I think I told her about that and she took me to the store, got me something that fit me. Yeah, but
Be embarrassed about. Just like we want our kids to come to us and talk to us about like when they're starting to like the opposite sex.
Yeah.
Right? Or we want them to be able to feel comfortable, talking to us about a problem they have with a friend.
Mhm.
We want them to be able to come to us and talk to them about, all kinds of things. And so if we're not having even, like this discussion, then how are they going to ever know?
Yeah.
So we got to open up the doors to
Yeah.
that communication.
Yeah.
So I'm going to be having a workshop coming up.
Okay.
So if y'all want to hear more information about it, you can go to my website.
Mhm.
It's agapedoulasllc.com
Mhm.
/MBHD. Maintenance by Design.
Okay,
So certainly check that out.
awesome. Thanks, Naomi.